y'all, it's Teresa, and today I'm going to be talking about 20 books that I want to read in the year 2020. Most of these are probably going to be books that you may never have heard of because a lot of them are older. And by backlisted, I don't mean like 2018, 2017. I'm talking like somewhere from like the 90s. So I'm just kind of picked out some books that I have been really wanting to read for quite a while. Have been on my shelves for quite a while. I just have never gotten around to them yet. So I figured 2020 is the year that I will finally read some of these dang books of mine. Hey guys, I'm just here editing this video and I'm realizing that the lighting is really blown out in some areas. In other areas it gets really dark. I kept trying to adjust it, but of course I couldn't see without these puppies on. So I do apologize. I don't know how to fix that yet in editing. I will try and work on that so that future videos aren't such crazy lighting. So I hope you can deal with it. Thanks. First few books I'm going to be talking about are books that I have started and never finished. I didn't like technically DNF them. I mean, I guess technically I did, but I didn't purposefully DNF them. So it's not like I didn't finish them because I didn't like them. It was just because I think I picked up something else and I got distracted or other stuff was going on and I forgot about them. Okay, the first book I have here is Tyrannosaur Canyon, and this is by Douglas Preston. Now, this is a book I have read before. I'm about that far into it. And like I said, I was really enjoying this book. I just, for whatever reason, put it down and never picked it back up again, which I'm kind of sad about because it is an interesting read. This book is about, it's a little bit hard to explain. Okay, this book, even though I've already kind of read part of it, I don't really know how to describe it, so I'm just gonna read the little thing on the back, the blurb, is that what they're called? Synopsis? Yeah, the synopsis on the back for you guys, and I guess just talk about that. It says, a moon rock missing for 30 years, 5 buckets of blood-soaked sand found in a New Mexico canyon. A scientist with ambition enough to kill, a monk who will redeem the world, a dark agency with a deadly mission, the greatest scientific discovery of all time. What firebolt from the galactic dark shattered the Earth eons ago and now hides in the remote cleft in the southwest US known as Tyrannosaur Canyon? The stunning masterwork from acclaimed best-selling author, recently hailed by Publishers Weekly as better than Crichton. I think that's how you pronounce his name. Which, to me, is a huge statement because they're saying it's better than Michael Crichton, who wrote Jurassic Park, which is an amazing, amazing book. Michael Crichton is one of my top favorite authors, so to say that this book is going to be better than this book, that is a high standard in my books. In my opinion. Yeah, Jurassic Park is probably up there on like the top best books of all time in my opinion, or the Jurassic Park, the 2 books that he wrote, but I definitely like the first one better. But that said, so far this book is pretty good, and I gotta be honest with you, like I didn't even read the back of it when I saw this. I literally just picked it up because of the cover, because if you can't tell by that and this, I like dinosaurs. The next book I have on the list is Annabel Lee. This is a book that I was started for Spookathon and again, just didn't finish. I think I probably went on vacation to visit my boyfriend and came home and like forgot about it. But this is a book about this girl who her uncle is kind of like a doomsday prepper kind of guy, and he wakes her up in the middle of the night one night and takes her down into this bunker, this underground like military bunker that he has in under his property, and he takes this like really scary German Shepherd guard dog. And he puts the dog, and like I think the dog like only speaks German or only understands German. Yeah, it speaks German. It only understands German, and the girl doesn't know like any commands or whatever for it. But anyways, they put the dog down there with the girl, closes the bunker, and says, "Don't open this door for anybody, not even me." So you're like, what is happening? And basically like she's down here in this bunker is like somewhere that she can live for a long time. So you're trying to like, she's trying to figure out, why did he put me down here? This dog is really scary. Like, what is this dog here for? Why can't I open the door to anybody? And she's a younger girl. I think she's probably like, from what I remember, she's like late grade school, early middle school. So between like 9 and 13 maybe. So she's, you know, it's partly her story of her being in this bunker and being like, what is happening. And then the other half of the story takes place with these two private detectives. I guess they used to be partners, and they split up for some reason, and now they have to come back together because there's this mysterious man who apparently is looking for the girl, or we think it might be the girl. He's looking for something that was stolen from him. I mean, the way it sounds is like it's the girl. But anyways, they have to work together. It's a female-male team, so of course, you know, there's going to be some kind of romantic feelings involved and all that kind of stuff. It's a suspense novel, and I really liked it so far. I feel like I'm really bad at like telling synopses of books. But I did like this. So it's basically half about the little girl who's in the bunker and half about these private detectives who are trying to figure out or find the secret or the thing that was stolen from this guy. And I'm assuming the two stories parallel or interact, like maybe she's the secret, because why else would they be in the book if it wasn't? Sorry if I'm really bad at this, but yeah, this is Annabel Lee. The next book that I have that I started and didn't finish is The Death of Mrs. Westaway by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is a very hit and miss author for me. I either really enjoy her books or don't really like them at all. So I did start this, and this one was seeming like it was a book that I would like. I just, for whatever reason at the time, just couldn't get into it. I believe I only got, yeah, I did not get very far into this book. I only got about like that far. And this is an advanced reader's copy, so obviously I've had this for a while. This came out in 2018. So I have had this book for a long time. I just never got into it. I'm thinking maybe I wasn't in the mood for it or something. I am a very, very much a mood reader. So I'm hoping that I can get back into this book and we'll read it and see if I like it or not. Now we're moving on to books that I have never read, but I do want to read in the year 2020. First up, I have another arc, and that is The Girls by Emma Cline. Yeah, something you'll come to know about me is like, I'm notorious for like getting books that I really want to read, and then I go to the library and read my library books because I'm like, oh, well, they're due soon, so I gotta read those first. And then I have all these books on my bookshelf that I never got to, and I'm like, bad. So that is why this year I'm really wanting to read more books on my bookshelf and hopefully get, you know, pare down some of these books that I haven't read. Also, I apologize if you can hear my dad in the background. He is downstairs and he's talking very loudly on the phone. So if you can hear that, I apologize. So The Girls by Emma Cline. I believe I said like this was an advanced reader's copy, and this came out 2016. So I'm behind a lot. Basically, this book, from my understanding, it seems like this girl is joining the Manson family. Now, if you don't know who the Manson family is, he or they were a notorious cult back in the 70s, I believe. Charles Manson basically claimed he was Jesus, and he had these followers, and they committed some murders on some very, Shannon Tate was a very famous actress. They killed her and her unborn child and a couple other people in her home. And basically, he was trying to start race wars, like against black people or something. This man is beyond insane. But anyways, that's basically them. And this is a fictional version. I don't know if it's supposed to be the Manson family or if it is the Manson family in this book, or if they have a different name. But from what I can understand about this is she is a girl who joined in with this group of people and not really realizing who they are and what their intentions are, because I do know in real life there were some members of the cult that really had no idea that the murders were taking place and these horrible things were happening. Or in the 60s, not the 70s, sorry, the 60s. I do believe it's supposed to be about this girl who joins it and is trying to like navigate the world and figure out like what exactly is going on, which to me is really interesting. I'm interested in cults in the sense of like learning about them, but not being a part of them. If that makes sense. Like people are, I mean, like I like true crime stuff, so it fascinates me, just the mindset and the psychology behind it. So when I got the arc of this book, I was super excited to read it, and then just never did. So I'm hoping this year I can finally get around to it. Next, we have Ready Player One by Ernest Cline. I know a lot of people know what this is about, but in case you don't, it is a sci-fi. I believe it's young adult sci-fi. Am I wrong? Is it adult? Anyways, it's a sci-fi. It recently was adapted into a movie. By recently, I mean within like the past like 2 or 3 years, was adapted into a movie. I am the kind of person who does not like to watch a movie before I read the book if I know that it was a book to movie adaptation. It's just something about me that I'm just like, I have to read the book first. So in this book, I believe we're following a young man who basically there's like, this is dystopian, and there is this virtual world that like everyone lives in basically, because real life world is like just too horrible to deal with. So he goes into a virtual reality world, and apparently in this world the creator of this world dies, and he leaves behind all these clues to like his fortune or something like this. And this kid or young adult guy, whatever he is, has to basically find it. Like everyone else is trying to find it too, and apparently people are willing to kill for it. And yeah, I know it's a very popular book, or it was a popular movie. It's sci-fi, and I need to read more sci-fi, so I decided to pick this one up. Now this year I am participating in a few challenges that are like year-long challenges, and one of them is the PopSugar challenge. And I believe you can find information about this over on Goodreads. One of the challenges, or prompts, I guess, is to read a book that is from a series with more than 20 books. So like a book that's part of a 20 plus book series. And when I went onto Goodreads, I was looking around at different books or different series that I could choose from, and I found one that I already have the first book on my shelf. So I decided that is the one that I'm going to be reading. And that is the number one Ladies Detective Agency. This is by Alexander McCall Smith. I don't know a whole lot about what this book is about. I do know that the main character is a private detective, and so she's trying to, let's see, it says she wants to help people with their problems in their lives. She's hired to track down a missing husband, an undercover con man, a wayward daughter, and then she gets in danger, and like this stuff happens. And I'm very curious if it takes place in Africa. It doesn't really say. I mean, it says a town, but like I don't know where that town is. But if you look at the cover, it looks like it's an African village or something, right? I'm hoping that this is set in a different country, because that would be really cool. I need to read more diverse books, but this one seemed interesting. I've had this on my shelf for quite a while, and when I saw that it was part of a 20 book series, or like more than 20 book series, I figured why not pick it up and start reading it so I can fulfill my prompt and mark this one down as a read on my shelves. So this book is one that I've had on my shelves for maybe about a year or so now, and since I'm wanting to read more diversely, I picked this one out to make sure that I get done this year. And that is The Shell Collector by Anthony Doerr. I believe is how you pronounce it. This is, he is the author of All the Light We Cannot See, and I have never read that book. I don't think I've read any of his books before. So depending on how this one goes will tell me if I'm going to pick up any more of his other books or not. This is a collection of short stories that basically take place all across the United States, and every story has to do with something wilderness or from the outdoors. I believe there's like survival stories or stuff that has to do with nature, and I'm really super interested in nature and outdoorsy type stuff. So when I read the synopsis of this, I was like, hey, I might like this book. I'm gonna pick it up and try it, and kind of step out of my comfort zone and see how I feel about this one. Up next is Shadow of the Wolf by Tim Hall. This is a retelling. This is a Robin Hood retelling, and I, for one, love the tale of Robin Hood. He is one of my favorite, like, classics, not classics, so what would you say, like myths or fairy tales, or I don't know if Robin Hood is a real person, but I hope you know what I mean. Like, he's like one of those stories from like forever ago. That's one of my favorites, and this basically is about Robin Hood, and he happens to also be a werewolf, which to me is super cool because I love werewolf stories. And so I'm really super excited to read this. I have had this on my shelves for probably 4 or 5 years now. This has been on multiple TBRs. I just have not gotten around to it yet. And so I think this is actually going to be one of the first books I read off this list, because this is one that is super exciting to me, and I'm really hoping this book doesn't let me down, because I've had such high hopes for it and I've been wanting to read it for such a long time that I'm like nervous to read this one. But if you've read it, would you let me know if it's any good or not? I'm scared. Please don't let me down. The next book I have here is probably the one that has been on my TBR the longest out of this entire pile. I have been wanting to read this book for 10 years. Yep, you heard me, 10 years. And that book is Hostage to the Devil by Malachi Martin. This is a true life, it's a nonfiction book, The Possession and Exorcism of 5 Contemporary Americans. So this takes place in America in the 1960s, I think it's the 50s to the 70s. I know it was written in the 70s, so it's around that time, so it's not like it's like Salem witch trials or whatever. Like, this is like fairly new nowadays demonic possession accounts that have happened in America. And this book inspired my favorite author, Ted Dekker, to write one of his books. And so when I heard him talking about the fact that he read this and was inspired to write his book, I just was like, I have to pick this up now. But like I said, that was 10 years ago. I just need to read it already. I'm thinking like I'll probably wait to read it around like Halloween time, just because it's about demonic possession and like kind of scary stuff. We'll see. It's a pretty good sized book. I don't know. Next on my list, I have Fear the Drowning Deep. This is by Sarah Glenn Marsh, and I'm not 100% sure what this is about, but I believe it has to do with sirens. Now, I could be wrong on that, but just from the synopsis, it sounds like it's a siren book, and I really like sirens and mermaids and that kind of thing as well. So this is about a girl. This takes place back in 1913. She lives on a small island, and I believe it's off the coast of either Ireland or Scotland or somewhere over there in the UK. And when she was younger, she watched her grandfather basically plummet off a cliff with a huge smile on his face, and he went into the ocean. And so she has always believed like that there is something that's calling people from the island to go into the ocean. And so that's what makes me think sirens. Well, when she's older, a body washes up on shore of a dead girl, and no one knows what happened to her. And there's also this mysterious boy that just randomly shows up in her town, and so people are thinking it's him, he's the one that's the killer. But this girl believes there's more to the story, and she believes there's something in the ocean that is luring people to their deaths to jump off the cliffs of this island. And that just sounds spooky, and it sounds intriguing, and just everything that I'm looking for in a book. So kind of like a mystery or a thriller mystery, but like also fantasy type, which I just absolutely love. So I'm going to definitely get to this book sometime this year. Up next, I have a middle grade novel, and I don't normally read middle grade. I do occasionally, and I do enjoy middle grade. It's just personally I prefer more YA to adults, but every now and then I like to throw in a good wholesome middle grade. And I decided to choose Dreamwood by Heather McKay. And guys, this is a book, I gotta tell you the truth, I picked this book up solely because of the cover. Look at how beautiful this is. I'm just like... And then the back, and then the inside is just gorgeous. The dust or the auto isn't as good, but you can see the beautiful gold embossing there. But yes, this book, it's beautiful, and I love anything that has to do with like woods. And so this book basically is about a girl whose father is like one of the top leading researchers into the paranormal, and he goes missing in the woods in the Pacific Northwest, and I believe she's where like the redwoods are, so that's kind of southern Oregon, northern California, and that's where I live in the Pacific Northwest. I live northern Oregon, but still it takes place near my state, and that's super amazing. But anyways, she runs away from boarding school to go find her father, who is missing in the woods, and I'm assuming it has to do with maybe fae or some sort of mystical type of creatures due to the fact that her father is a paranormal investigator. Along the way, she meets up with a boy. I don't know exactly how she meets this boy, but they basically have to go on an adventure into the woods to find her missing father. And anything that has to do with like maybe paranormal stuff and woods in the Pacific Northwest and just the beauty of this cover, like, yeah, I can't stay away. So I'm very excited to get this read in, and I'm hoping it doesn't disappoint. I also believe I may have said excited for every single book so far. I'm sorry, I need to come up with more vocabulary words. Next on my list is I, Saul by Jerry B. Jenkins. My siblings gave me this book for my birthday when it first came out back in 2013. So like I said, yeah, I'm behind on my reading. This man is about Saul, or Paul, who is a historical figure from the Bible, and he was someone who used to persecute Christians and basically round up Christians and deliver them to the Romans to be put to death. And then he got converted to Christianity, he met Jesus, and his story completely changed from there. So this is basically like a dual perspective story where it takes place nowadays. There's a woman who is a seminary professor or seminary student, I can't quite remember, and she finds these like ancient manuscripts, and they are Saul's manuscripts, or writings of Saul that he wrote while he was in the dungeons of Rome waiting his execution. It goes in between nowadays and AD 67. So it'll be really interesting. I'm curious to see kind of the parallel between the two and like what it's about, what are these writings. So it's kind of like a historical fantasy type of book, or historical fiction is what I mean to say, type of book. And Jerry B. Jenkins, I have read a few of his books before and I have liked them. So while historical fiction is not my favorite genre, this one definitely intrigued me. And since it was a gift, I figured I should probably read it. Another book that I would love to read in the year 2020 is Save Me From Myself by Brian Head Welsh. He is the former lead singer of the band Korn, so many of you may recognize this man. Or I'm sorry, he wasn't the lead singer, he was a lead guitarist. Yeah, lead guitarist. And this is his autobiography, and it says how I found God, quit Korn, kicked drugs, and lived to tell my story. Now, I am not a huge biography or autobiography person, but I do really like kind of redemption stories and stories about people who just had life really hard and kind of came through that and worked through that. I really don't know much about this man's life at all. I do know that, I mean, I recognize him from the band. Like, I never really listened to Korn, but I have friends and stuff who do. And it has, you know, pictures of him growing up and different things. And this is a book that really intrigued me because I have, in my family, there is drug abuse. And it'd be interesting to see kind of this guy's story of like, well, first off, how did he even become the lead guitarist in Korn? I'm really curious to see, like I said, how he became who he is, what brought him to drugs and the rock and roll lifestyle, as I'm assuming kind of is what happened, and then how he became saved from that, and like when he decided, why he decided to quit the band and all these things. That's what this one is about, and I think it'll be an interesting read. So I've mentioned this author earlier in this video, and that is Michael Crichton, or Crichton. Again, I can never pronounce this guy's name correctly. And this is Parrot Latitudes. This is the only book by this author that I personally own that I have not read yet. So I haven't read all of his books, but of all the books that I own, this is the only one I haven't read. And I believe it's his only like piratey book. I don't know like 100% what this is about, other than the fact that it's about pirates, and pirates are cool. And I don't really read many pirate books. So this is going to be really interesting. This guy is, he's actually, well, he's passed now, but he was a scientist in real life as well as an author. And so a lot of his books are scientific. A lot of his books have very technical, they're like kind of like fantasy, but like with science infused. I mean, think Jurassic Park, right? So I'm very curious to see what this is about, if it has to do with anything science-y at all, or if it's just total fantasy, or if it's more like historical fiction. Honestly, I don't know, but I'm very excited, as I would like to finally say that I have read all of his books that I own anyways. The excited thing again, guys. I'm so sorry. Just ignore the fact that I have like a limited vocabulary, okay? Now this is a book that I have had on my shelves, again like these other ones, for quite a long time. And I just have not gotten around to it because I keep finding new releases and other books and I'm like, I have to read those, I have to read those. But this year I'm like, you know what, I have to read these. So the next book I'm choosing is The Justice Riders. This is written by Chuck Norris along with Ken Abraham, Aaron Norris, who is Chuck Norris's brother, and Tim Graham. This is basically like a cowboy story that takes place right after the American Civil War. So it's the beginning of like the Old West type of Western type of stories, and I grew up with my dad watching Westerns. This is basically, I believe it's about like a marshal or sheriff. This guy becomes sheriff or marshal, and he has a group of men that go around and kind of enforce the laws, and it reminds me of, you know, just a bunch of old westerns that I used to watch all the time with my dad, like Lonesome Dove and Magnificent Seven, and just kind of like groups of people going around and like getting stuff done and just being like heroes of the Old West. And I'm super excited to read it and super excited to see if he is as good of a writer as he is an actor. Hey guys, I'm back again. I realized as I was about ready to post this video that I left out a book, Wolf's Angel by M.D. Lachlan. This is a adult fantasy novel about Vikings and werewolves. And that's about all I know. It has to do with Anglo-Saxon and like Norse gods and things like that, which is really interesting to me. So yeah, this is a book that I definitely want to read this year because I really want to read more adult fantasy, and then you include Vikings and werewolves. As mentioned before, I like werewolf stories. So yeah, this is that book, and sorry about this video taking forever. The last book that I have on my person that I have to show you is Bite Me: How Lyme Disease Stole My Childhood, Made Me Crazy, and Almost Killed Me. And this is by Ali Hilfiger, who is the daughter of Tommy Hilfiger, the fashion designer. This book has been one I've been wanting to read for a while. I've kind of been putting it off because I feel like it's going to be a bit emotional for me, as I as well have Lyme disease. And this is her story, basically her biography or autobiography of dealing with the disease. And I do know that before she was diagnosed, she actually was sent to a mental hospital because they thought that she was crazy. I mean, I don't like to use the word crazy, but that she had some sort of mental disability or like clinical insanity or something along those lines. I don't know exactly what they thought she was. But it turns out that it was Lyme disease, and she was to the point where like basically feeling like I'm gonna be in this hospital for the rest of my life. This is gonna kill me. No one can tell me what's wrong with me. They all say it's in my head. And then to find out it's actually from a tick bite. And this story I think resonates with me a lot because while I was never institutionalized, I went 3 years without a diagnosis, and those 3 years were some of the worst years of my life. Doctors were telling me there's nothing wrong with you, it's in your head. I'm gonna get strangely emotional talking about this, but I'm not gonna go into it much. My story here, if you want more about my story, go check out my vlog channel. I'll be doing a Lyme story on there soon. But anyways, I think this is going to really resonate with me, and I feel like some of our story is very similar. And I know she went through this when she was younger, and I was 15 when I got sick. So dealing with this, like when you're in high school, is just horrid. I mean, dealing with the period is horrid, but when you're in high school, it's just like, oh, it's terrible. But anyways, I'm very excited to read this book because, like I said, it's her autobiography of this struggle with this disease, and it's something very personal to me. And so I am quite excited and quite nervous. I'm pretty sure, like I said, it's going to make me emotional. But I think this is going to be a very treasured book in my life. So these last 3 books are books that I do not have a physical copy of. The first one of these is Ninth House by Leigh Bardugo. This, I think a lot of you probably know what this is about. So Ninth House is Leigh Bardugo's first adult novel. And I have heard very mixed reviews about this book. Some people really like it and other people really don't like it. So it seems like there's a pretty even divide there. I really don't know how I'm going to feel about this book, but it is intriguing enough for me to want to pick it up and try it and see what I think. So Ninth House is about a girl who goes to Yale or Stanford or something like that. I think it's Yale, but like a prestigious college or university, and she is tasked with kind of governing or figuring out these like secret societies within these fraternities. At least that's like my understanding from what I've heard people talk about this book. So it has to do with like magic and kind of secret society in college life, but I do know there's also a lot of trigger warnings in this book, none of which are like personal triggers to me or anything like that, but some of which I'm not too fond of reading about. So whether or not I will enjoy this book, I do not know, but it's enough intrigue and it's interesting enough, I think, and I've heard enough people have said good things about it that I do want to pick it up and I do want to try it and see what I think. The next book I do not have a physical copy of is Little Women. This is a book that I have been 50-50 on whether or not I want to read it because classics just kind of aren't my thing. I don't know a whole lot about this book other than the fact that there's like the sisters, was there 4 or 5 sisters, and I guess it's kind of their story. But I would like to read it. I think there are just some classics that even if I don't really like them, I still would like to say, yeah, I've read that, at least give it a try, you know. And I also, the movie does intrigue me a little bit. And I saw Books and Lala, Kayla's video about it, and our reading tastes are not really that similar, but the fact that she's not really a classic reader either and she really enjoyed it makes me think maybe I might like it. So I'm gonna pick it up, probably get it from the library, and just see what I think, whether or not it's going to be one that I'm like, yep, I didn't like it, I knew I wouldn't like it, or if it's going to surprise me and be one that I am quite excited to read and maybe even own one day. Okay, the very last book on this list, book number 20. I actually finished this one already this year, and that is Turn of the Screw by Henry James. So I gave this book about 2.5 to 3 stars, though to be fair, I did listen to it on audiobook, and I have heard since then that the best way to read this book is physically read it. I feel like if I was to, now that I kind of know the premise of the book and understand it a little bit better, because I did do some research after I read it to kind of like be like, what the heck was this book trying to tell me? Because I felt like there was a lot of words said to describe very little. I felt like it was just overabundance of things that just were like, there's no point. It's like filler words and filler paragraphs and pages and all this stuff in this book that I was like, just get to the point already, okay? But again, I need to read it physically, I think, to really get a true grasp on how I feel about this book. The reason why I picked this book up is there has been so many retellings and adaptations coming out recently. I know Ruth Ware was at Turn of the Key. I have not read that yet, but I do want to. I wanted to read Turn of the Screw first so that I could kind of understand where the adaptation is coming from. I believe Netflix has a series that is adapted from this, and there's a new movie coming out this year in the year 2020 that is basically like a play on Turn of the Screw. So I was like, you know, I really need to read this book because all this stuff is coming out. It's inspired so many people. I need to just read it already. And Turn of the Screw, if you do not know what it's about, which I had no idea what it was about going into it, is about a nanny or a governess who is in Victorian era England, and she goes to the countryside to take care of these 2 children who have been orphaned. Their uncle hires her on, and she starts to, these things start happening, and she starts to think that there are ghosts that are haunting these children, and so she's trying to protect the children from being haunted. And the interesting thing about the book is you don't know if there really are ghosts or if this chick is just crazy. And if she's like spiraling into delusion because she's in this isolated home and she's just like losing her mind. You really don't know. And so that part definitely was an interesting part of the book. So yeah, that's kind of what that book was about. I think I like the general premise of the book and the story. It was just, I feel like it could have been a lot shorter than it was. But I want to make sure that I read it, a physical copy first, to make sure that I'm giving it a true, proper rating. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you have read any of the books that I have talked about, because I know most of the books on here I've never heard about before, on BookTube at least. So if you've ever read any of them, please let me know what your thoughts are down in the comments, or if you would like me to review some of these books, maybe some of them seem interesting to you and you'd like a review about them, please let me know that as well, so I can make sure to take notes when I'm reading, and so I can do a proper book review for all of you guys. Thanks so much for hanging out with me, and I hope to see you in the next video. Bye!